Hey everyone! I wanted to get each of you thinking a little bit more about your introduction speech. The PowerPoint that I'm about to go over doesn't specifically address the introduction speech, but is an excellent guideline for approaching every speech that you're going to give. So I'd like to follow along, or at least take you on this journey to explain a couple things that I want you to keep in the foremost of your mind as you start to approach the excitement of writing this introduction speech. So the first thing that I really want to think about is for each of you to start to ask yourself a couple questions about the following categories. And these are the categories that we're going to look at today. Things like your purpose, the occasion, the audience, and the message. Now, what you're going to start to understand as the course goes on is that these different elements, the purpose, the occasion, the audience, and the message, make up something called our rhetorical situation. It's imperative that each of us take a step back from any speaking environment and opportunity that we have and take into consideration the other elements beyond us that could impact the message that is being received. And what are those elements? Well, that's what we talk about here, that purpose, occasion, audience, and message. Let's go ahead first and look at the purpose. I want you each to consider the question, what is my purpose for speaking? Every speech that you are either assigned to give or you are asked to give will have some kind of purpose to it. And finding out that purpose is essential to you being effective. Every speech should, of course, have that kind of purpose. But also, every speech will only have one purpose. And this purpose is going to help keep you on track. Oftentimes, individuals will shift in between, let's say, informative and persuasive speaking. If I wanted to, for example, give you a speech about, let's say, gun control, and I had a strong feeling about what should or shouldn't be done with guns in the United States, I could potentially start to merge that opinion into my informational speech. And when I start to talk about something that is persuasive or an opinion or an assertion I believe other people should believe in an informative speech, it can start to get uncomfortable for the audience. Ensuring that you only have one purpose, and we will in this class, each speech is going to have a specific purpose to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. And that's what we will see here. Our introduction speech, as well as our cultural speaker speech and our informative speech are going to be to inform. And then our persuasive speech will be to persuade. This speech, in fact, is going to be inform the audience about you. That is your purpose, to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're about. We know that it isn't trying to persuade us of that, but instead simply inform us. The other thing that you need to always remember with the purpose of a speech is the designated allotment of time. Nobody ever gets to speak for an unlimited amount of time, so I want each of you to keep in mind the time that is given to you, in fact, to speak. The hard thing is that this is your introduction speech, and you're like, Amanda, I'm 21 years old, or I'm 30 years old, or I'm 45 years old. How am I going to tell you everything about me in this specific amount of time? Well, that is what we are also going to do this semester, is we are going to learn how to condense our ideas and narrow our focus to specifically talk about that of which our purpose is targeted. The next element is called the occasion. And so we always want to ask ourselves, what is the speaking occasion? What am I going into? Is this a wedding and I'm giving a toast? Is it a classroom and I'm giving a speech? Is it a business, let's say, development meeting? everything is going to have an occasion, and that occasion yields and speaks to what should and should not be covered. There's a concept in Greek rhetoric from a philosopher named Aristotle. Aristotle came up with the concepts of your rhetorical proofs. And you may have heard about these before, something like ethos, pathos, logos, but in turn, this idea, kairos. So oftentimes individuals have maybe heard of kairos before, or kairos, however they've explained it as. But the definition refers to the opportune time and place that is right or appropriate time to say or do the right or appropriate thing. Okay, well, in short, what does this mean? This means that we need to start to take into consideration numerous things, such as our audience, our location, our setting. What is the political, social, and cultural climate that makes up this audience, this time frame that we're living in? And what messages are needed at this time? So I say that this is an important element because if we are starting to look at the ethics of speaking, not all speech is going to have the same weight as it does if you were to deliver it perchance at an opportune time. And that's what this concept refers to, that each of us is going to have the opportunity to speak. That is what is wonderful about the gift, if you are living in the United States, to be able to say what you want to say. However, is that the best time to say it? There are many circumstances and events in which an occasion will not lend itself to hear your opinion. I always bring back a very funny example in class of a man named Kanye West and a girl at the time named Taylor Swift at something called the MTV Video Music Awards, where Kanye West got up on stage and took a microphone from Taylor Swift and said, "Taylor, I'm going to give you this microphone back, but right now I need to say something." Now, if you haven't seen this clip, I encourage you to go look at it. But what we had here was an award show. An award show is something where we are honoring an individual and we allow them the opportunity to come up and speak. The fact that somebody came up and took that opportunity away from an individual being honored created somewhat of a dissonance in the occasion. And what that did was create some kind of controversy, a little bit of uproar over the individual, Kanye in this case, stating these things. I ask you, if Kanye were to have taken a second and maybe not said anything, and the next day in a space that was not designed for award winners communicated his message, would it have been received differently? I would say yes. The important thing about Kairos is to consider what is the opportune time and place to speak. What is the occasion I am speaking for? Making sure that what we are saying and our goals are aligned with that occasion in order for our audience to most effectively hear what we're saying. The next element and question I want each of you to ask is, to whom am I speaking? We are going to do a lot this semester revolving with our audience. The most important thing, and this is a hard one, especially in a public speaking class where we're thinking, okay, well, I'm learning to public speak. I'm learning how to stand up here and feel good. But wait, you want me to focus on the audience? Yes, our audience is who we are speaking to. Think about it. Our audience, you do not need to persuade yourself of anything. You don't need to introduce yourself to yourself. You've done all that. You know all this information. The reason that you are speaking is for the other individuals in your audience, for the people who are listening to your message, maybe via a computer, perchance those individuals who are reading the newsletter you wrote. To whom you are speaking is an excellent question to ask, because every piece of discourse is going to be tailored and, in fact, about them. We will be working through the semester to address that kind of egocentrism that individual audiences have, that how does this affect and impact me? And we can still talk about the things that we want to, but in a way that appeals to our audience members. Our class is going to be serving as our primary audience for our first 3 speeches. We will be doing an audience analysis, demographic, and you'll be doing that you did that within your first orientation module. So we started to see some of the facets about you. There's also something called environmental analysis. Understanding the environment that anybody is at any given time is going to, in fact, influence the way that they hear that message. The schooling, the state that perchance they're in, the people of power of whom are in the room, all influences how that audience receives a message. And the other thing is your value analysis, and we'll go over this later in the semester to talk about what do individuals value, what do they believe, what are their attitudes toward particular policies, politics, social happenings, cultural experience. What is it that they have and how do they value that? What is most important to them? But ideally, our purpose of addressing the audience is to include them, not exclude them, to give them the opportunity to see their voice within the work that we are giving, to see their experience within whatever you are representing to them. We will work on utilizing our language, utilizing examples and particular illustrations, way to make our words come alive for any audience, depending upon if they're aware of that information or if they aren't. Each of you will become experts in this idea of audience analysis and understanding how to appeal to those audience members. The last question to ask yourself is, what will I speak about? And ultimately, this is the message that we're going forward with. The message is your speech. So with keeping in mind those elements we spoke about, your purpose, your occasion, and your audience, when we know why we are speaking, and what our goal is to inform, to persuade, to entertain, what the occasion is, whether the tone is light and airy, whether it is serious, whether it is an honoring, whether it is to understand content. The importance is understanding what our occasion is and speaking to that and not something else. And then finally, understanding our audience, their beliefs, their values, and their attitudes. When we are able to take each of those parts into consideration and start answering the questions about each of these elements, we are then able to choose and select effective organizational practices, choose great examples, visuals. We can use effective delivery styles, even utilizing effective language. There are so many different ways that your message will come to be tailored around these questions. And when they are, you will know and be more confident in speaking about what you are. Each of these elements will eventually come together, and the interconnectedness of all of those answers is going to create a speech that you can feel confident and competent in delivering to your specific audience for your specific purpose under the specific conditions that you are.